Hello everyone, this is Frank with On Demand Mechanic. Today we're working on a 2009 Chevy pickup. I noticed that I was getting some squeaking, so I thought, well, maybe my brakes were dirty, so I'm going to check them out and see what they look like. Hopefully they don't need to be replaced, but they might, so that's what we're working on today.
Okay, so everybody, if you can see me here, I'm adding this section after the fact. I'm done with the brakes. I've already bedded them in, but I went through and looked at the video and did some editing on it there, and I noticed that I was calling these brake shoes. These are brake pads. Since this is a disc brake system, it uses brake pads. Brake shoes would be for the drum brake. For some reason had shoes stuck in the brain. So another thing is the torques that I talked about. So on mine is a JF3, so I looked up what the torques would be. There's some good Silverado forums out there that you can find a lot of this information. Mine happened to be for the caliper bracket, which is what this is called. There's 129 foot-pounds, and then for the caliper itself, the bolts that hold it on, the brackets back here, and these are the bolts for the caliper, they're 74 pounds. So you'll have to look that up depending on your specific model. So mine is a JF3, so if yours is a JF3, that's the torques for that. I also think I made another mistake and referred to this as a caliper at one time, which is actually the rotor. So just so you all know that I do kind of know what I'm talking about here. I'm sure I'll still get comments about it, but that's okay. At least people are watching the video if I get comments on it. So wanted to make that clear. Thanks everybody, hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so you really can't see, but as I look down in here, it looks like I don't have a whole lot of brake pad on the back side here. I can see where it's rubbing the indicator, or maybe hopefully not metal on metal. But definitely doesn't look too good as far as whether I need some brake pads here. So the best thing to do is to take the caliper off and kind of see what we got, and so that's what we'll do now. Just got a 3/4 inch, looks like a 19 fits kind of too, so some of these vehicles are metric and standard, I guess, but I don't know, I just use whatever fits best. It's hard to say what they mean to be, but some sizes fit better than others. They're already pretty loose in these, so that's why they were really easy to get off. And what you want to make sure you do is you've got a rubber brake line here that you don't want to be kinked or ripped or anything like that. So I use a little bit of safety wire, kind of just tie this thing up here, keep it from flopping around or hanging on that rubber. I see people do that, and I guess that's okay, but I can see where you might be able to rip it. Actually, we'll put it up here on the spring. Behind this rubber, this piece of plastic, this is a I believe that's the cable that goes to the speed sensor in the hub. So also want to be careful not to damage that while you're doing all of this. Grab that caliper and pull it right off of there. There's a wire between the loop here. I'll get back to working on this here in a minute. But you can't see it in the video, but I got this where it's got a nice little arc in the rubber tube, and nothing's going to bind or rip. It's not rubbing on anything, and it'll be out of my way while I do the rest of the job as well. So now I can get to the shoes here, and I can see even more that this inside shoe is a little bit, pad. Shoes are the drum brakes, but it's pretty worn. I'm going to wind up taking this whole assembly off here, but I just wanted to kind of peek at these, but you can definitely see that they're worn. So these are also 3/4, and once again I cheated before the video and loosened these up so that I could get to them. Actually, this one on the bottom I couldn't get to, so let's get that sucker off of there now. Always put your hardware somewhere where you can find it. I've done that too many times, and it's really frustrating setting a bolt down on the floor and kicking it across the room or having it roll down a hill. So I always try to make a spot for them. On this case I have my bench right behind me, so that's really handy. And as you can see, I'm definitely on the wear indicator down here with the shoe. No really shoe left there. Even the outside one is kind of worn, so I'm a little bit surprised. I did these a couple years ago, but maybe they were soft shoes, or I don't know. But time for a brake job, looks like, and might as well do it today. So while that's all off, now I can get the rotor off. Personally, I either turn or replace the rotors every time I do a brake job. I know people that don't and just replace the shoes, and doesn't make a lot of sense. I've worked with an old brake guy who does this for a living and is one of the best front end guys I know. And he said, well, you wouldn't rebuild an engine without honing the cylinders or boring out the cylinders, would you? So that's kind of the analogy I use there. So it's worth taking the time, and you can actually see on these, it looks like a hot spot through here. I'm not sure if you could see them on that video, but it looks like something was rubbing through here at one time, because it's like a bluish area, so it looks like it got hot. And the back they'll feel good, but they need to be turned. So to get this off, there's a little screw here that holds the hub on. It's kind of nice. It doesn't flop around, you know, like some of them do. I mean, the wheel is really going to hold it on, so it doesn't matter. But this is a T30 Torx bit that I'm using here to loosen this up. And once again, I kind of cheated a little bit and did this beforehand. And I'm going to show you just one side. Obviously, the other side is going to be the same way. So we're going to focus on this side, and I knew this side was the one squeaking, and I suspected it might be the one with my problem, so that's why I wanted to start over here. But now maybe on that rotor you can kind of see that hot spot through here. Don't know what caused that, but certainly not good. But and these are not stock rotors. These are slotted and drilled, and I put them on there because I often pull a trailer and with a car on it, and I want as much braking power as I can get, even though I do have electric brakes on my trailer. But don't know if I'll go back with these or not. I don't know that made a huge difference, but I have the original setup there that can also be turned. And then the backside looks pretty good. You can see some heat here too, where they were getting kind of worn, and you can see some where it was kind of chattering or chafing a little bit as it goes around, so it wasn't making great contact. So definitely time for a brake job. Okay, so during the break I took the right side off, just the same as the left side, just a little backwards, I guess. But anyway, looking at the rotor from the right side, it's got a lot of heat and a lot of wear looking spots on it here too, as you can see. So not sure I'm going to use these rotors again. I might just go back with the stock ones. I'm concerned that maybe the slotted and the drilled holes in here are causing the brake pads to wear down, and you know, I don't buy the lifetime guarantee brake pads because again, my brake buddy told me that, hey, those are really hard, and they you know, they just really eat into the rotors. So it's probably not the shoes, but maybe the rotors. But I'm going to go ahead and go back with the stock rotors that I have anyway. So these will be kind of put up. But just wanted to show you that, you know, even over here I got a lot of heat. Looks like a lot of heat. They heated up really bad, and that's kind of weird. I really don't. I'm not used to seeing that. But even on that side on the shoes, they look really good. I mean, there's not any wear into the metal. There's a lot more shoe actually over here than there is on the left side. You can see there's really none there anymore. Hopefully you can get a good view of that. It's hard to tell with the camera here, but so looks like some new shoes, and replacing these rotors with the original ones that I have. I'll go get those turned, and we'll use those instead. So I will work on that, and we'll be back. Okay, so back from the parts store. While my rotors are getting turned, we got a couple other things we can do here. Just want to show you first the pads I buy. I'm kind of picky. You know, I learned from a guy. I've mentioned him several times in the video, but always does a great job. I mean,
knows what he's talking about. So anyway, when I look for a pad, I look for something that's not hard as a rock. I mean, these lifetime pads are great, but they're hard. They ruin the rotors, which are a little more expensive. But I guess it depends on how you want to go. I mean, I guess you can get a new pair of brake pads if they go bad, but you're going to have to buy new rotors sooner. But so what I look for is, if you can see my finger's kind of clean here, and I'm just going to wipe it across there, and you really can't see it, but there's some black on there, which tells me that it's not hard as a rock. These are ceramic, and I think a little bit different composition than like a semi-metallic, but they're good pads. They were a good price. I didn't buy the high end, but I also pulled off this pad, and you can see, if I hit the light right, you can see the little holes looking like through here. Basically, that's kind of where it's getting down to the rivet, where the pad is actually riveted to the steel plate here. And when you get into that, then that really causes some damage with the rotors. So I actually caught it at the right time, and these indicators are for the squeal indicator. So when you hear you're squealing, that's because that's rubbing all the time, and that was kind of what led me to think I might need a brake job. So fortunately, I caught it in time before it ruined the rotors. Although I am not using those rotors, I'm using the stock rotors. So what I like to do is, you know, work on one, kind of leave one the way it is in case I need to look at what it looks like. I've done kind of disc brakes enough to where it's pretty straightforward, but I know when I do drum brakes, I do that for sure because there's a lot of springs and stuff that go on there, so I will take one apart, finish it, and then do the other side. This way I have a reference if I kind of get lost on some springs, and something I don't do a whole lot of. So what I do now is I'm going to prepare the little carrier here. I'm sure this has a fancy name, but it's where the shoes go, and got these new clips with the new brake set of brakes too, so I'm going to get that out of the way for now. This pad was getting kind of worn too, so I don't know, I bought this as a kit from one of these online stores. Maybe it wasn't a great deal. It seemed to wear out a little fast. I liked some of those stores online, but maybe I shouldn't buy stuff and get it cheap. I guess you get what you pay for sometimes. But so I've got these new clips here, so I'll just pull these out since we'll be replacing them anyway. And what I like to do is you know, it's not a show car, but I do want to get a lot of the grime and crap off of here. So sometimes dirt makes things squeal, and kind of drives me crazy to have things squeal. So in these areas where I'm going to put this, I'll probably use a little brake cleaner to clean that up a little bit too. Just use an old shirt. Good use of an old shirt right here. Just trying to get there's a lot of junk in here I'm trying to get off of here, so not sure where that one came from. Just want everything to go back and line up, make sure there's no debris in anything. Okay, and then so I've got the clips that go back on, and again I can use this as my reference. I kind of know they go on this way, and then they'll just kind of push right on there. Get them right about in the middle as much as you can. And they just push right on there. Pretty simple. Other side, right in the middle there. Push that on. Okay, and so then I'll take a little bit of brake grease here, put it in these areas here where those pads are going to ride. These ears of these pads will be riding kind of in here. So make sure we get those greased up too. Brush here. I kind of have a little bit of a grease in there, so I don't leave much in there, but okay. So that should be good there. Okay, so looking at my reference over here again, can't see this one, but which way the shoes go in there, so I get that right. Okay. Should just slide in here. That, and then we'll leave them out because we'll need to make sure we got enough room to get that rotor in there when the new ones come back. Grab another one of my shoes here. It's kind of a pain, they got to be squared up or otherwise they just won't go in there. But they go, once you get them, they go right in. Okay, different shoe. So that one wouldn't fit because I got the wrong shoe on there. So there's an inside and an outside. I should have known that, but these are all wrapped up so I couldn't see them. They're wrapped up in some, covered up, so didn't notice it, just happened to grab the same one. So that's why that guy wouldn't go on there. But here I got the right one now. Slide right in there, no problem. Okay, so that's ready to go. I can put that actually, well, I need the rotor, can't really do much with that. I'll work on the second one now and do the same thing with it. Whenever I get, at least I like to look at the other shoes to kind of see where you can put a little grease on the back side of these as well, where they might be rubbing. And you can see kind of the areas where you might need a little grease on there. And so I'll grease these up. This is where the calipers are actually hitting the back side of that shoe. So I'll put a little grease on that, but I'll do that after actually I get it on there. I tend to get my fingers in things like that. So I'm going to put this on pause for now and do the other side, and then in a minute I'll come back and we'll look at how I push the caliper back in there. You know, we need to get that caliper squeezed back in so that when I get the rotor with these new thicker shoes, I'll be able to get that caliper over here, and show you that in just a minute. Okay, so hopefully you can see right now I'm going to try to get the calipers pushed back in. There's a dual piston caliper here on this truck, and you can see they're stuck out, obviously, because as your brakes wear, it keeps pushing in on them. So hopefully you can see that. I know the lighting in here is probably not the greatest. So I'm going to push these back in. So you know, one of the things I do is I do not push it back up through the master cylinder. I know, you know, I've been told that that's not a good thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a hose on the bleeder here, and then I'm going to crack that bleeder open, and then I'm going to, as I push this in, it'll come out the bleeder, and then whatever excess does not go back up through the master cylinder. It actually just goes out into the jar that will be down there here shortly. And then I just use I don't have a specific tool for a dual caliper piston, and I like to push them both in at the same time. So I'll use a bar and a big C-clamp to do that. So go ahead and get that going here. And okay, so got the hose situation figured out here. I got a hose from my brake bleeding kit here. That'll fit right on that. It kind of has a good seal, so I don't have to worry about it getting all messed up. But before I do that, let me put a wrench on there so that I can turn that. Open and closed. Good, yep, we can open it now. And throw this on here too. And we'll throw that end in here. We should be good to go. I'll loosen that up. Everything should come out and go down in the hose. Should be good to go. May have to redo that, but let's get the clamp on there first. See how this is going to work out. Just using a regular old C-clamp. Found somewhere. Who knows? a piece of bar stock here that is laying around the shop. Okay, so that actually sits in there really nicely and is right over the middle of both of those calipers. Just getting this all rigged up can be kind of a trick here, so let's see how we're going to have to make this happen today. Alright, well, we might be able to kind of push in the middle a little bit here. Obviously you want this laying flat, otherwise it's not going to work. If I push on this side, we should get them both pushed down. It's pretty thick bar there. Sometimes using a little extra hand here sometimes, but when you don't have it, you figure it out. Okay, I don't want to push that in too far. Get this loose here. So now I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the bleeder. That's probably in my way for right now. See, I'm getting some brake fluid out of there, so it's opened. Make sure it gets a good... And as I do this, I want to kind of make sure it's getting some fluid down the hose. And you can see I'm getting water brake fluid down here, and it's actually pushing in. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. You probably can't. My leg is in the way, or my arm. But here you see what I'm trying to do here. I'm pushing in from here. This bar goes across, and it's actually going across both of the calipers here. Both of the pucks on the caliper anyway. And then I got the hose on the back side here that I don't know that you can see. Try to pick that up a little bit. It's actually going down into the, right here. Anyway, down into my jar down there, so I don't make a mess all on my floor. But as I turn this in, it's going to start moving these pucks in right here. They're already moving pretty easy, although looks like I'm going to have to kind of go back and forth because it's not going down even. So I wish I had a better solution for that, but I don't. So just kind of try to evenly go in. I try to make it nice and even so it's not a jerky motion. See, I'm getting a lot of fluid down there. So I'll definitely want to put some more brake fluid in here when I'm done. So just kind of a nice even motion. And get them both in. You can see I'm kind of getting uneven again here. So let me swap over to the other side. Get this side down. And swap over again here. Hopefully you can see most of this. I think my arm is probably in the way. Nice if I had somebody to hold my camera, but I don't right now. I don't know what you can see on the video. It's hard for me to tell. But anyway, I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to do here. Push those all the way in so now I can get around those new brake shoes that I got. That side's all the way in. This side's all the way in. I'm just going to kind of leave that there while I tighten this down. Okay, and I didn't make too much of a mess, so I guess I'm in good shape there. Kind of hang this up out of the way for a second. Make sure that's tight. Alright, so that is pushing the caliper back in there. It is all up in there. Without too much of a mess. Made a little bit of a mess, but most of it looks like it got caught down into my jar here. And that's that. Okay, so I just got the rotors back. See where my camera's pointed here. Here's the new old ones, I guess you might say. Back this out a little so you can kind of see. There we go. So these were the originals that I had and stored away. And then here's the other ones that I had that drilled and slotted. And like I said, they don't turn these at the parts store, which is just basically a local chain. And I can see why, because if you turn them, I think the slots go away, and you may have to reslot them and re-drill them. So they seem like kind of a pain. And I don't know that they changed a lot. I mean, I'll kind of get a better feel for when I put the new ones back in, but I don't imagine they changed my stopping that much on the truck. But anyway, thought they might be worth it. I don't think they really were. So we'll get this one out of the way. And just to show you, I just want to take a little of this brake cleaner, because if there's any kind of crap on there, you can't maybe see that, but there's some dirt that I just wiped off, which is basically, you know, the dust from it being machined. This place up here does a nice job. Nice smooth surface. Looks really nice. So, and I do all the time. Every time I do brakes, I turn the rotors or buy new ones if I need to. I've seen people, and I think I already mentioned this in the video, but it just doesn't make any sense to me not to. For the extra, I mean, this $15 to get each one turned, so for an extra $30, it's worth it to me to do it right. I'm kind of a stickler on that. So wipe that side off. My bench is kind of dirty, so it doesn't help. And then just get this wiped off, and then anyway, so once I get these all cleaned off, this is the one for this side, so we'll go back over here, and then we'll be putting everything back together. So as you can see, I got the other side done. So we're all ready to go put everything back together. And so the next section will be, and I also want to show you that I also cleaned up the bolts that I'll be using, and I put a little bit of anti-seize compound on them that I use for a lot of things. Some people use the Loctite, but there was no indication of Loctite on these, so I don't use Loctite on them, and I've never had any problems. Some anti-seize, and then I torque them down to whatever the specs are, and that's usually good enough for me. So anyway, I just want to show you that too. Okay, so back down here now, I've got the everything ready to go back together. I'm going to go ahead and take this off. I made sure it got that bleeder tight, so it's ready to go. Wipe off any little excess brake fluid there, and there's a boot that goes on that. Keeps all the crap out of there. That's kind of nice to have. A lot of times those fall off or get lost and get a lot of dirt up in there, but anyway. And then I'll take the clamp off of there. We don't need that anymore. Our calipers are pushed all the way in. Both of them. So we don't need this anymore. And let it just hang there until we're ready for that in a minute. Use that on the other side. I'm just going to show you one side. Like I said, the other side's the same. So now I take my rotor. I got a cleaned up rotor here. And on these, I think the only thing I got to worry about is where this screws in. There's a hole in the caliper here. I'm not sure you can see this without me getting in your way again, but there's a hole here that's got a bevel chamfered into it here. That actually is where that goes. The little screw goes on to kind of hold that on there. So we'll get that lined up. Just like I got it there. And we'll go ahead and throw this guy back in there. And it's kind of nice because that keeps it straight. Sometimes when you don't have this and you're trying to put the brake pads on and this thing's kind of crooked, and it's kind of a pain. I mean, it's convenience, but certainly doesn't have to be there. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and get my assembly with my brake shoes fitted to here. Again, I'm sure there's a technical name for this, and I'm sure I'll hear about not knowing what it is, but whatever. And then this is actually going to go over, obviously, the caliper, and then it'll bolt down in the back here. So everything looks good there. Grab the two bolts for this.
Started. And that one started. It's pretty easy to do brake job these days. They really simplified it. Not that it was that hard in the past, but seems like there's better engineered the way they put everything together. Okay, and then we'll put the torques onto that. Don't have my torque wrench out. Don't even know what the torque specs are for now, so I will go back and torque those, and maybe at the end of the video I'll throw in what the torque specs are on these. Then I kind of push these together because they're going to be up against there. So, and now I want to go ahead and get a little bit of oil on the back side of these, a little bit of that brake grease, just so that it doesn't get any kind of vibration, kind of squeaking. Sometimes you get some squealing when these are rubbing on each other directly. So just a little bit of that oil helps keep that from happening. So I'll take some of this here, kind of like I did before. I'm not sure exactly where it all should be, but get it on there where I think it should be. I do have the other brake shoes. So on this front side, looks like it's more along the top in this area. Again, just be careful you don't get that on the spots you don't want it on. On the back side, it's just where those puck kind of hit the back of that pad, so there's not a whole lot. It needs to be greased right there. Get a little grease back there so we don't have to worry about the squealing. Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and torque these down. I'm going to go ahead and tighten them for now, and I can get my torque wrench back in there when this is all back together. And next we'll put this back on. So we've got these pucks moved in, so now we can fit over these brake pads with no problem. You definitely want to make sure they're pushed in. There's some springs back there that kind of push back on you, so go ahead and unhook me from my safety wire here. Theoretically, this should go right over the top of this. Oh, hitting that bottom. There we go. It's hitting that bottom where that bolt goes through there and was sticking on me. So, okay, so we'll get these bolts in here to hold those on. Make sure these are kind of straight behind. They kind of get tweaked a little bit. This one's fine and this one is fine, but there's just like a little rubber boot here. You want to make sure it's kind of not binding or ripping or anything like that. Kind of keeps the dust out of inside where this is going to kind of move a little bit back in here. So, and then again with these, I've got some anti-seize on these as well. And get these lined up. And screwed in and torqued down as well. Try to stay out of the way. It's hard to see a video when my arm and my head is in the way, but it's kind of hard to do that when your camera's on a tripod. And we're good to go. So that's that side. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the other side, get these all torqued down. I will get these torque specs for these so that you have them if you are actually watching the video, because you're going to do this job. Okay, so I'm just out bedding the brakes here on the front of this thing.
my Chevy truck here, and all I'm doing is I started off kind of going 5 to 10 and then hitting the brakes slightly, and then what I'm doing is picking up speed and then stopping a little faster, so just to kind of ease into them. And during the times that I'm braking a little harder, I'm giving them a little bit more time to cool off as I drive around. It happens to be a nice cool day, so it's very nice that I don't have to worry about them getting too hot. But the whole idea is not to get them too hot and make them start warping, because that's a problem, obviously. So you know, I just kind of ease into breaking them in, start at 5 to 10 miles an hour, stop, work my way up to, you know, 15, 20, 20 to 30, and then brake a little harder every time. By the time I'm done, I'll get out here on the big main road and hit about 50, and then I'll shut it down a couple times and then just drive it around, let everything cool off, and then bring it back to the shop and park it for a little while. So anyway, that's all I'm doing on the bedding, nothing major. So thanks for watching my video. I hope you found it informative and useful. Please visit us, On Demand Mechanic, at www.ondemandmechanic.com, and also like us on Facebook. Thanks.